am here from a slightly different perspective of my office because I was too lazy to do my full setup this morning. But here we are to do books, where are we? 7 and 8? 7 and 8 of the Iliad. When we last left the Iliad, Hector and Paris were returning to battle, and at the start of book 7, Hector and Paris return to battle. Athena sees them, and she heads down from Olympus because she's on the side of the Greeks and she wants to be sure that the Greeks win, more or less. Apollo meets her because he's on the side of the Trojans, and they kind of converse. He says we should, tell the sides to suspend the fighting, maybe just take a break. And Athena's like, sure, but how are we going to get them to do that? And Apollo, somewhat counterintuitively, if I were Athena, I'd be kind of squinting at him, goes, well, I'll make Hector even more bloodthirsty. But the idea is that Hector will want to, call out the Greeks and do, a one-on-one fight with one of the best Greek warriors. So, remember earlier, Paris and Menelaus were supposed to fight one-on-one and decide this whole war. And then that didn't work out. So, the plan now is for Hector to call out a Greek, the Greeks can decide on their best warrior, and they'll fight one-on-one. So, Helenus, who's the Trojan prophet, I guess, and also one of Hector's brothers, Priam has all these kids. He has 50 kids or something like that. It's insane. Or he has 50 sons and then a bunch of daughters besides. I mean, he has an insane number of children. I think all of Troy is just basically Priam's kids and their families. I don't know. But Helenus says, he kind of intuits that the gods have had this conversation, and he tells Hector to challenge the best Greek warrior. And Achilles still not here, right? So Hector, tells all the Trojans to settle down now, and Agamemnon tells the Greeks to settle down, and then the Greeks are trying to decide who's going to fight Hector, and no one's volunteering. And that makes Menelaus mad, and he scolds them, and he nearly goes himself, but Agamemnon stops him because he's like, if we lose you, we lose everything. I don't know. Nestor tells this really long story about, I don't even know what. He just goes on. It somehow gets the Greeks in fighting spirit again. He's on about, Nestor's old, right? He's the old Greek prophet, and he's going on about how he wishes he were young enough to be the one to fight Hector, kind of a kids these days thing. Crowley, really? Sorry about that. If you've watched this channel for any length of time, Crowley sometimes brings chaos in his wake. Okay, so Nestor, is kind of kids these days don't want to fight anymore. Kids these days, they don't want to work anymore. Well, his little story manages to get some of the Greeks riled up, and 9 men jump up, and it's determined they're going to have to draw lots for who's going to fight Hector. And Ajax wins, if you call that a win, I guess. His lot is drawn. There are 2 Ajaxes. It's not clear to me if this is are they greater and lesser? Big and little? I don't know. One of the Ajaxes. Anyway, one of the Ajaxes fights Hector, and Ajax is winning. Hector is able to kind of hit his shield or whatever, but he's never able to completely penetrate. Meanwhile, he's having to dodge, Ajax, who's able to get very close, scratch him. He's got Hector, on the ground. They're about to do close combat with swords, and the messengers show up and go, it's getting too dark, guys. It's getting too dark to fight anymore. And I'm like, wow, that's convenient for Hector. At which point Ajax says, well, it's up to Hector if he wants to keep fighting or not. You're losing, dude. You're the one getting your ass beat. So, whatever you choose. And so Hector goes, yeah, let's take a break. um, and they trade gifts. Hector gives Ajax like some kind of silver bejeweled sword, I think, and Ajax gives him a red dyed belt, which I mean, maybe at the time, maybe that's a really good gift. I don't know. Maybe, dyeing was an art, and not all dyes were readily available, so maybe something dyed red was impressive. I don't know. But they trade gifts, and the Greeks go back to where their ships are, and Nestor is like, we need to take a day off and, take care of our dead. We got to build the funeral pyres and collect the bones to bring back to Greece when we go, and we need to build some fortifications. Like, he's got all these plans. Meanwhile, in Troy, Antenor is saying that they should just give Helen and the treasure back. He's like, Troy's at fault here. We're the ones who broke all the oaths and, all the, we're the ones who, we're not good guests by stealing treasure and women. So, but Paris is like, no, I'm not giving Helen back. God, he's kind of awful, isn't he? He's all like, we can give him back the treasure. I'll even add some of my own stuff to the treasure, but I'm keeping Helen. And they're like, okay, well, we'll see what the Greeks say about that. So, the next morning they send Idaeus down to the Greeks to say, hey, by the way, we should take a break in fighting so we can take care of our dead. And also, are you interested in this deal where we just give back the treasure and a little extra treasure, just not Helen? And, and the Greeks are like, no, there's no way we're just letting him keep Helen. But yeah, we want to take the day off of fighting and tend to our dead. And so that's what they do. They take that day off. The Greeks tend to their dead, the Trojans tend to their dead, but the Greeks also build these fortifications. They build this kind of seawall to, keep their ships safe. And it's described, but I don't have a good mental picture of it, but it sounds like something that they can go behind, almost like a trench wall, right? Poseidon doesn't like this, by the way. Poseidon notices, and he goes to Zeus, and he's like, they didn't even sacrifice to me. They didn't even ask permission for this. They're building these fortifications, and that's not cool. And, yeah, I mean, it's the sea, and also Poseidon is, he's a strong god, and he's kind of, a lot of times if you're erecting a wall, you sacrifice to Poseidon. And Zeus is like, whatever, dude, when they leave, you can knock it down, okay? You're the earthquake god, so just chill. So that is how book 7 ends, with Poseidon and Zeus kind of having that conversation. And then we move on to book 8. Okay, so book 8 starts with Zeus calling the gods together at the top of Olympus and being like, you guys need to stop interfering and just let me finish this war the way I want to finish it. And if any of you cross me, I'm going to toss you into Tartarus. Come on, try it. Try me. Athena is the only one brave enough to even say anything. She's like the smart-mouthed daughter here. She's like, we won't interfere, but we will give the Greeks advice. We won't mix in, we won't help them, but we will offer advice to them. And Zeus takes off to sit on top of Mount Ida to watch the war as it goes on. Battle rages till about noon, and then at noon, when the sun's at its highest, Helios or whatever, he's at his highest, Zeus pulls out some golden scales, and the Greeks' destiny sinks, and the Trojans' destiny rises, and the Trojans basically now have the upper hand in battle, and they are going to start winning. I think Hector nearly runs over Nestor, and Diomedes sees this, and he's yelling to Odysseus, hey, but Odysseus, realizes what's happening, and he runs back to his ship. He's like, I'm out. Odysseus is not the most brave of the Greeks here. Diomedes is ready to run at Hector, but Nestor warns him to retreat. Hector knows at this point that he's been blessed by Zeus, at least for now, and he's going to take advantage of it. So he's like, I'm going to go down to the Greek ships. I'm going to like force the Greeks to retreat, and then I'm going to set fire to their boats and, you know, knock down their fortifications and all this stuff. But Hera is seeing all this, hearing all this. She's like outraged, right? She goes to Poseidon. She's like, we should do something. But Poseidon's like, I ain't crossing Zeus. Like, he told us to stay out of it, so I'm staying out of it. So Hera goes and encourages Agamemnon to take some action. Agamemnon goes to Odysseus' ship, which is kind of in the middle of the line of ships, so it's the best place to be seen and heard, I guess. Ajax is supposedly at one end, Achilles' ship is at the other end, and then Odysseus is kind of like right in the middle. So Agamemnon gets there, and he's kind of shouting to the Greeks to try and encourage them, but he's also praying to Zeus. He's like, what? I've given every sacrifice, like I stopped at every one of your shrines on the way here, on the voyage here, like, you know, please. And Zeus has a moment of pity. He sends an eagle, which is one of his emblems. He sends an eagle that drops a fawn next to the Greek, like, altar or shrine to Zeus, you know, as a sign. So that kind of gets the Greeks going again. They take that as a good sign. There's a Greek man named Teucer who keeps trying to hit Hector. His arrows are really well aimed and he's killing people, but Apollo keeps stopping him from managing to hit Hector. He's hitting everybody but the one person he wants to hit. The Trojans start to win again. So then Hera goes to Athena, and Athena's like, okay, get the horses ready. Athena goes and gets dressed in her battle clothes. Like, she takes off her beautiful gown that she herself had woven and all this stuff and puts on basically her battle gear. And Hera and Athena head down from Olympus, which of course makes Zeus angry. He's like, I warned you. Oh, I forgot. I'm going to put it on the screen. There's a moment when Hector is winning and he's getting boastful that he talks about his horses. And I swear, Hector has like My Little Ponies. The horses are named like Sparkle or whatever. I was just like, okay. So enjoy that. But anyway, Zeus is mad because Hera and Athena are coming out from Olympus to go down, and he threatens them again. He threatens them again. Yes. And I'll put his threat on the screen here for a second, too. He gives the threat to Iris and sends Iris to deliver it to Hera and Athena as they're leaving Olympus. He says to Iris to turn them back, and she delivers the threat, and Hera kind of goes, I no longer care who lives or dies, which of these mortals, like, lives or dies, and she goes home, and Zeus comes back, and Hera and Athena are kind of keeping their distance and not talking to him, and Zeus goes again about his strength and how he's the strongest god and no one can cross him, or, you know, whatever, and Hera says the same thing Athena had said at the beginning, where she's like, we won't help the Greeks, but we will give them advice. Which is weird because after all that, they hadn't really given them any advice. I mean, I guess Hera told Agamemnon to go talk, like, when he went to Odysseus' ship and prayed and shouted for the Greeks to get them going again, but as far as advice goes, it's not, like, super helpful, I wouldn't say. I don't know. Zeus declares, basically, that Hector will not stop fighting until Achilles rejoins the fight on behalf of a dead Patroclus. So So it's kind of the foreshadowing. These things have to happen. This is how it has to go. And yeah, I'm going to say Patroclus because the glossary in this particular translation says that that's how it's to be pronounced for the meter in this translation to be correct. I know some people say Patroclus, but Patroclus is the preferred pronunciation for this particular translation. Night finally falls. The Greeks are really relieved. Hector is just telling the Trojans, like, make sure the Greeks don't try to flee in the night, like in their ships or whatever. He wants to attack at first light. His focus is particularly at this point Diomedes, which is interesting because Diomedes didn't really have much going on these past couple of books aside from trying to save Nestor and I mean, going for Hector until Nestor tells him not to. But we do know that up till now, Diomedes has been probably the most formidable of the Greeks. Ajax is up there. Certainly, he really almost did just pound Hector. But yeah, so that is where book 8 ends. And yeah, thanks to everybody who's been tuning in. Who would have guessed that this is a very small channel, but I never would have guessed that me covering the Iliad would have been the thing that got more viewers interested. But again, if there are other stories you want to see for Storytime, let me know in the future. If you want different myths done or other stories like the F. Scott Fitzgerald one I did a while back, I'm open to it. And until next time, take care.